Стрельба! Укрыться! Get down! Move up! Run!
Cold War is a hidden gem on Roblox that's been through the development trenches for nearly 3 years now. It's had some really big highs and some even bigger lows, but what has kept this game afloat is what a lot of developers fail to do: keep to the original design.
Move up! Taking fire!
Now, what actually sets this game apart is the destructible map. All explosions can affect the map, turning it into a pile of rubble at the end of the round. There are a few different classes which can use explosives to do this. However, another important factor is the bullet penetration. Bullets can penetrate walls. Obviously, it depends on the type of weapon and material, but it means that you can't just quick peek windows and flick around corners. If you try that, someone is just going to use an MG and turn the wall you're hiding behind into Swiss cheese. As long as the bullet hits you, nothing else really matters. The game is obviously called Cold War. If you think that means cold like temperature, then we have bigger issues. The game plays as an alt history of NATO versus Pact. Pact, or the Warsaw Pact, was between the Soviet Union and a bunch of Eastern Bloc nations. The game has 5 classes: Rifleman, Light Support, Heavy Support, Specialized, and Command. Most of the classes have like 10 different subclasses based on the Soviet or NATO-aligned nations. Rifleman is the most irregular class. The only thing changing across subclasses is the rifle. Light Support is comprised mainly of recon and longer-ranged weapons. Heavy Support has light machine gunner roles as well as various anti-tank roles, meaning RPGs and all the mayhem they can attribute. Enemies hiding behind a wall? What wall? Specialized currently has Crewman and the newly added Medic. Crewman currently has no function, but in the past there was a few armored vehicles that required the role for. Command currently only has the Radio Man class, the only class that can call in artillery strikes. All these classes have limits though to how many people can use them in your team, mainly so 100 people aren't calling in airstrikes. The game also has a fairly simplified medical system where you have to heal individual limbs with bandages when they're shot. Over the course of the game's development, a lot of things were changed, and more maps and other features were added until it became something that was nearly unrecognizable from the original design. And they completely stopped updating it after they started working on the newest rework, which almost killed the game completely. That was until the rework actually got released, and they reworked a lot of the maps, completely redid the gun system into something a little more technical and refined, and are currently working on revamping the other maps that were most popular. And the game has reached the point of perfect harmony. Its essential components have returned to what it was 3 years ago when I made a video on this game. And I can talk all about this, but it's better if I just show you what it's like to play this game. But before I do that, I must confess. As a sniper main, I love to just sit in a window and click a few heads. But I must confess something. I'm evil. I don't just do this. I change window every time I shoot, and I'll wait minutes for someone to pick a spot again. I've gotten absurd amounts of kills. And if you're in that Russian town map on the NATO team, don't even try walking around the Alpha Point. You have to be watching those windows like hawks, and if it's not that building, it's the other ones to the left, because I'm always watching. And it's such a mean strategy because half of the time you don't even know where it was from. It's just one moment you're there and the next you're not, because the strategy just works way too well. Come on. Yes sir! Oh, I'm so evil. Look. Okay, let me defend myself though. Most of these shots were taken under 100 meters, and I know that the people who shoot across the map, they're annoying, okay? I'm not the problem. I'm not crazy. Okay, in all seriousness, I think the anti-tank is probably the most dangerous class in this game. You can literally just sit at the entrance of the enemy main road with a few guys and hold up their entire transport line, forcing them to get out early, go out of their way to hunt you down, and then get back in just so they can get back into the fight. Also, as mentioned earlier, it can dismantle walls. It isn't.
Yes, it is.
But
How would you know?
well, how would you know?
Yeah.
Oh!
And you may argue that artillery is actually better, but I disagree. The artillery in this game used to be so much more scarier and more destructive, but currently the artillery doesn't apply many effects that make it harder to shoot or make you really want to do anything different, and the damage to the environment just isn't as effective anymore.
Is that even if you're slightly nearby, it is going to make your screen shake so much that you can't even aim at the enemy.
Something that used to happen was that the artillery would shoot the roofs and the debris would all lie on the streets, which would make it harder for cars to go down but also provide cover for people. But it just isn't something that happens in this revamped version. I hope they do add that style of debris back, but admittedly the new version is like 100 times more optimized and doesn't lag the servers nearly as bad as it used to get. Aside from that, my other biggest complaints for the current state of the game is firstly the recoil system. I like that the shots are always dependent on the barrel position, however I wish that the recoil was less all over the place and instead more jumpy. So you can't spam the guns like you can right now, but they'd also be a lot more predictable to fire. The second thing is vehicles. They're a bit less buggy than they used to be, but honestly they still kind of suck. Delayed turning, and the Soviet ones are almost 50 times slower than the NATO ones. I've always felt the game is missing one very important feature for this style of game where you capture points, which is actually being able to spawn at those points. This game's worst part is when you spend a minute piling into a jeep and driving across half the map just to die before you can even get out. Oh dear.
What is that?
Where is he?
In the window.
Oh.
In the window!
Not including the running time after you get out. I think it would offer a lot more incentive to players if you could just spawn at least near the points you capture, so the benefit to holding points isn't just so your team can get more tickets, as I do know some people just find it more fun to farm kills instead of hold the points. Just thought I'd cover this in the video as a lot of people I've talked to don't even know it existed, but Cold War has a decently sized faction scene. I haven't been able to get into it, so I don't have much to say about it, but I've brought on someone who I know has lots of experience in this faction scene. Okay. Who are you and how long have you been in the faction scene for Cold War?
I'm known as Fighter _750 or Poutine Man. I've been in the faction scene since October 2023. I'm the leader of the Bundeswehr Western faction, and I've been doing that since summer of 2024.
How does this faction scene as a whole operate, and how do the events usually go?
Basically, there are two sides in the NATO pact that are pitted in a faction war against each other. One that will soon be restarting in the summer. The main events are battles where factions fight directly against each other in private servers. These take lots of planning and coordinating, and are much more organized in public lobbies.
What have your thoughts been watching the lifespan of Cold War in your time?
It's had its ups and downs. I've been playing for quite a while too. And as they went through a new renaissance for the game with full release at 1.0.
And how would you describe the Cold War faction community?
Honestly, I'd say it largely depends which side of faction you join, as they offer much different experiences. There are really LARPy groups, and others that just goof around.
Big thanks for Poutine Man for featuring in this video. The game link is in the description where you can join their Discord. In their Discord, I'm showing you can see in the links channel, that is where you can find the faction hub and get into it. The last thing I want to touch on is how I rate the game, using the same scale as the Portier at War video. Key defining aspects of the game, which are core gameplay and map design, are rated out of 20, while the others are rated out of 10. So we'll go with core gameplay first, which is pretty fun and simple, but it still has enough variation to make it really fun and interesting and keep playing, obviously. So I'm going to give it a 16 out of 20. The classes in this game are fairly well thought out. Personally, I think they're fairly well balanced, and there's enough variation in the subclasses to stop it from getting boring or repetitive with switching between classes, so 8 out of 10. The second defining aspect of the game, which is out of 20 again, is map design. Currently there's not much variation out of the current maps that are available, which are, I'm going to butcher these, but Morslingen and Kokrovka. They're mediocre. I think there are too many enclosed areas in these maps, but there's not much to complain about. They're pretty reliably made. I think they're well designed. 13 out of 20. Teams is mainly referring to the design of each team and their balancing. There used to be NATO bias, but while it is a little true on the Kuklovka map, otherwise it's not really that bad anymore. The designs are okay for the teams, but I think some of their uniforms are a little rough around the edges, so it's getting middle of the road, 5 out of 10. The technical gameplay for Cold War is fairly in-depth with a bullet drop, penetration, suppression, and destructible buildings, so it gets an 8 out of 10. It's pretty solid. Environment and storytelling is always something that needs detail in games. Most of the maps have random destroyed walls or cars lying around, and a fair amount of small details hidden around. It's nothing crazy, but they did put effort into it, so it gets a 7 out of 10. The UI in this game is fairly basic. It does the job, it works. It's definitely not bad, so it gets a 6 out of 10. Problems and solutions is based on the problems of the game and the solutions that are available. So basically how hard it would be to fix the issues currently. There are a fair amount of small problems throughout the game, however, I think some of the solutions are a little nuanced and have a lot of difference from player to player. It's very fixable, but likely would take a good amount of player feedback and testing to satisfy everyone, so that gets a 6 out of 10. So here's my final rating, 63. This rating system aims to have 50 to be your average run-of-the-mill game. Getting high scores means your game has almost zero problems in every factor. So 63 is definitely above average, however it reflects the issues in development, especially the current lack of content. If you hate my opinions, please feel free to shout at me in the comments. Watching to the end of the video helps out a lot, and if you want to make this video perform better, then make sure to comment 30,000 times and like the video as well. I'm also considering creating a Patreon in the future, mainly so I can hire an editor, as these videos usually take a lot of hours to edit just by myself, and I'm thinking like $5 for the lowest tier. It would have polling for thumbnails, early video releases, behind the scenes, video teasers, and even opportunities to participate in videos. Please let me know in the comments if you would be interested. Alright, the yap video is over. Expect the next one to be an absolute gem. This video was a little bit of a filler as I had problems with the one I was working on, but I've resolved it all now, so be prepared for greatness.